Hello everyone, Ronnix with it another tutorial, and this is actually my last series of my skin retouching episodes that have been dropping for you guys, and those free courses that have been dropping over time and again. So this is basically going to be my last skin retouching tutorial this year, and I hope you guys are going to learn everything about skin retouching from this very tutorial. And for those who have been having issues about skin retouching, I hope this really finds you in a good mood to learn and understand how to use the basic tools and everything about skin retouching and color grading. So this is basically the last skin retouching tutorial I'm doing, and if at all you don't understand anything from this tutorial, I'll refer you to my previous courses about skin retouching and the previous courses about skin retouching that I've been uploading on this channel. So I want to take you step by step so that you can understand each and everything, and you won't be having any issues regarding skin retouching. So basically we are going to do a full retouching course, and under this course you're going to be learning so many things, and the first of it is going to be about how to import your images into Photoshop. Then after learning about that, we're going to be learning about how to remove blemishes from your images, and we're going to be going through all the tools for removing blemishes in Photoshop. And after doing so, we're going to be learning about skin retouching. Then after learning about skin retouching, we are yet going to be learning about the amazing dodging and burning technique. So under dodging and burning, we're going to be doing skin sculpting on the image you're going to be retouching. And after that, we're going to be learning about color grading and eye whitening. And finally, how to export all the best export settings for your images in Photoshop, so that you don't have issues with your images, especially for those who post them on Instagram or use them on different websites. Images tend to change color or have a color shift. So we're going to be handling all that in this tutorial today. So let's kick in and we start learning about how to do skin retouching, color grading, and everything I've talked about. So first of all, we want to learn about how to import images into Photoshop. So in order to import your images into Photoshop, you have this option right here. You can see File, and before I can proceed, I'm using a Photoshop version of 2020. Yeah, so you can come to File and hit Open, and when you select there, it is going to bring for you a folder where your files have been stored. All the images you want to retouch have been stored. Or alternatively, you can come right here to Open. Yeah, then you select where the image has been stored, and you just click on the image to retouch it. And for those who have older versions of Photoshop, just simply double click into the Photoshop interface or window. Yeah, when you double click there, it is going to bring this option of where your image has been stored. So for this tutorial, you're going to be using this very image. The image is for a friend and a model called Jasmine, and I'm going to put her Instagram link or the link to her Instagram profile in the description of this video. So we want to start by learning about how to import raw files and how to color grade them, so that we can get colors close to the ones we are seeing basically on the screen of the camera when we are shooting the images. So click on your image and click on Open. Yeah, so when you click on Open, it is going to open your camera filter or the camera interface in Photoshop. So basically this is what we have right now. You can see there is no adjustment done onto this image, and this image is a raw file, as you can see. So I want first of all learn about how to process raw images in Photoshop. So what you can see right now, this is the camera interface. So a camera interface or camera is basically an engine that is used to process raw files in Photoshop. So that engine helps us to process raw files or raw images in Photoshop. So I'm sorry if I told you guys can hear some little noise in the background. So we want to first of all learn how to process this and get those nice vibrant colors. Initially in my previous tutorials, I used to come right here under the profile, and I could just come and select the camera profile, or the profile in which I shot the image in Photoshop, or sorry, on my camera screen. But I didn't notice that this was really affecting my images, because when you select, I shoot in landscape, so every time I used to select the profile or the camera calibration option, every time I selected this landscape, I was not noticing that it was giving me so many or too much saturation in the images. Yes, the image looks fine, and you can use this specific technique to maybe get back those colors. But if at all you're not going in for a more saturated kind of look, you can come right and change it back to Adobe Color, so that you can only work on these basic settings or the basic options. So we want to work with the basic options because we want to work on this image and retain the naturalness and not get oversaturated colors from this very image. So usually I first come to the highlights and I knock them down like that to get back the highlights that had been lost, especially in this floral in her crown. So that's why I first of all turn the highlights down, and when I turn them down, you can see we are getting back those nice and rich tones in the model's face. Then I prefer to also knock down my whites slightly like that. Then after doing so, I prefer to also come the blacks and just knock it down slightly to get some contrast in the blacks of the image. Then after I come the shadows, and I just prefer to just knock it up a little bit, not all the way. I think that I can do. Then after doing so, I come to the exposure, because I felt like the image had really become so dark, so I'm just going to expose it a little bit more. So I think this looks okay to me. Then I'm going to come right under the tint, because I feel like Canon usually adds, you can see the image already has some magenta. So for those that shoot it with Canon, make sure you check that option. So I'm just going to reduce on the amount of tint in this image. So I'm going to go with 3. 3 looks okay to me. Don't mind, we are going to come back and color grade this image and get back the skin tones. So after doing so, I prefer to add a little bit of clarity. You have to add more detail and emphasis in the image. Then I'm going to turn down the vibrance, because I felt like it was really too much. And I'm also going to turn down the saturation to around -1. I think this is really good, and we are good to go to start retouching. So I'm going to come right here. You have 3 options right here. So what I'm basically going to do, I'm going to come and I select open. You shouldn't click done, because that is not going to open the image into Photoshop. So just click open to open the image into Photoshop, and it is just going to open the image into our Photoshop interface. So this is the Photoshop interface. So let me try to zoom into the image so that you can look at it really well, and you notice what we are going to be doing or editing about this image. So what I want to do, I would like to show you the areas you're going to be handling or tackling in this very tutorial. And for those areas, I want to create a blank new layer. Don't mind about this. This is not part of the lesson. I just want to highlight and show you guys what you're going to be fixing in this very image. So I'm just going to get the brush. Then I think I'm going to go for a color that is really going to show everything. So we're going to get green. So let me show you guys what we are going to be handling. I hope you guys can see this little dark patch right there. Then you have uneven skin tones right here. Then we have this area, we want to fix that. Then we want to blend the skin tones right here. And Basically, skin retouching is more of evening out the skin tones. That's why I'm basically highlighting those areas that we need to fix in this image. So we have some patches right there, then we have some right here. So we basically want to blend or even out the skin tones in those particular areas I've been able to highlight. So after that, I'm going to maybe get a different color, and I'm going to show you guys the other thing we're going to be doing for this image. We are going to, after doing our skin retouching and removing blemishes and everything, we are going to contour this image to bring back a shape or dimension, and under that we are going to be enhancing these areas like the highlights in the image, like these beautiful highlights, and we have highlights right here. So we are going to be emphasizing these areas to give our image a more professional kind of look. And after doing so, I'm going to get a different color. So for the shadows, we are going to be enhancing these areas for the shadows, so that we can sculpt this image to really look beautiful and amazing. So if at all haven't selected these areas, it is fine. So basically that is what we are going to be doing, and I'm just going to come and I'm going to delete this layer. So under skin retouching, we have so many options we are going to be using, or so many tools. We are going to be using the Lasso Tool for skin retouching. We are going to be using the crop tool. Then we have this spot healing brush tool, the healing brush tool, and the patch tool. Yeah, these three options we are going to be using them, and the clone stamp tool. Then we're also going to be using our brushes, the brush tool and the mixer brush tool. So basically that is what we're going to be using for retouching this very image. So let's kick in and we start learning about the very first thing. And usually before I do any retouching, I always make sure that I do crop my images. And for cropping the images, I come and I use the crop tool like I've mentioned before. So when you select the crop tool, it is going to create this kind of dotted border all around your image. And when it does that, you have to move these corners. You can see when you move them, all these are going to move like in a uniform way. So usually my images, or you can notice that my crop ratio has been 4:5, because I usually post my images. So you have so many options you can use to crop your images, but usually I prefer to crop my images for Instagram. That's why I have to select 8:10, because when I post this image on Instagram, it is going to occupy the whole screen on Instagram when I do post it. So that is my aim or my goal. So when you hold down and rotate this towards this side, you can see you're straightening up the lines in the image. So I'm just going to crop this image a little bit more like that, and move to have a more precise kind of crop for this very image like that. And I think that looks okay to me. And after you have felt like you have done the right cropping on your images, just hit enter on the keyboard. But before you do hit the enter key, make sure content aware is not on. Yeah, because it may delay your cropping of the image. So after we have cropped the image, now we want first of all learn about how to remove blemishes from this very image. And in order to remove blemishes, we're going to first of all create a new blank layer by selecting this option right here. Yeah, you create a new blank layer and just create it. So when you create this blank new layer, we want first of all remove the blemishes or skin imperfections in this image, like the pimples, acne, and everything. So we basically want to clean up the image so that it can look really nice and gorgeous. So you're going to come and first of all select the spot healing brush tool. So when you select, you can right click and get the spot healing brush tool. And when you do select that, make sure you come and select sample all layers, because we want to use both layers so that the clone sample tool can select all samples from the background layer. Since this is a blank layer right on top. So how the spot healing brush tool works, you make sure you increase it by using the left and the right brackets on the keyboard. Then make sure it is bigger than the blemish you want to remove, or bigger than the pimple you want to remove, or the acne, and just click over that acne to get rid of it. So make sure sample all layers is marked. So just come and click over the blemish. So Photoshop is just automatically going to sample from an area it thinks it is clean enough, and it is going to replace that blemish with a cleaner part of the skin, like that. I hope you guys are seeing the results. So that's the before after. So just do that and clean up your image. Then the other tool you may want to learn how to use, or you may really prefer to use, we have the healing brush tool. And under the healing brush tool, you can really sample. So when you select it, it has this option of sample. So make sure you select sample current and below, because you want to sample both layers, this current layer and the layer below. So when you do that, you decrease or increase using the brackets like I've said before, and hold down the alternate button or the alternate key on the keyboard. Click on a clean area while still holding down the alternate button, and release it, and just paint over or dab over the blemish you want to eliminate from the image. So basically that is how the healing brush tool works. So hold down the alternate key and click on a clean area close to the blemish, and just click on the blemish. You can see it is really doing a pretty nice job to remove the blemishes from the model's face. Then the other tool you may want or prefer to use is the patch tool. So under the patch tool, you basically select the where you just select the blemish like this, and when you select it, you can simply you can make sure this can work. The patch tool basically works when you're on your background layer. So let me show you guys what I'm trying to mean. So when you select that and you move it towards a cleaner side, you can notice that the blemish which was here has been gotten rid of. So let's just select right here and drag to a clean area. You can see it has just replaced that patch with a clean area. So that is how the patch tool works. So I'm going to get back to layer 1, and I'm going to show you guys the fourth tool for removing blemishes. So that is the clone stamp tool. And under the clone stamp tool, you have to sample current and below after selecting it, because we want it to sample from both layers. And now hold down the alternate key. So this basically works like the healing brush tool. So hold down the alternate key and click on a clean area, release it, and paint over the blemish you want to get rid of on the image. So depending on how fast you want to remove the blemishes, you can get or adapt and use various tools for removing blemishes. But for this case, you're going to just stick with the spot healing brush tool to quicken up the blemish removal in this particular image. So let's do this quick and remove these blemishes, so that we don't take a whole day just learning about how to remove blemishes from the images we are just going to do retouching on. So I hope you're learning something and you're really taking notes. I just want this tutorial to be impactful and helpful in your career as a photographer or as a retoucher out there. So let's do this quick, because we just want to clean up the image. So, and I think the spot healing brush tool is doing a pretty nice job to clean up the image. So I think this looks okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go down and clean up the lower parts, but I think this is okay. So after we have done so, we would like to merge these layers by coming right here to layer and scrolling all the way down to merge visible, or you can simply click Shift Ctrl E or Shift Command E to merge these two layers, and you can see the layers have been joined into the background layer. So what I would like to do, I'm going to teach you guys about skin retouching. So skin retouching is basically blending the uneven skin tones so that they can be uniform in the image. Remember, whenever light falls on our skins, it creates those uneven patterns, and there is no uniformity when the light falls onto the image. So we want to fix that, and by fixing that, we are going to be learning about frequency separation to blend the uneven skin tones using the mixer brush tool. And you're going to notice this very part, we're going to get rid of it. So basically, what is frequency separation? I forgot to tell you guys, to zoom in your image, you use Ctrl plus or Command plus on the keyboard to zoom in or zoom out on the image like that. So basically, frequency separation is a skin retouching technique that divides the image into two layers. It gets the colors, puts them on one layer, and gets the textures and puts them on a way different layer, so that when you join those two layers, you're going to get back the whole image like it is meant to be. So that is basically what we want to do, so that you can work with the tones like this and fix them, and we can work on with the textures and retain them in the image. So in order to do that, we are going to create those two layers by hitting Command J or Ctrl J twice on the keyboard, or you can simply drag and drop on this new layer icon to create a new layer. So we just want two layers on top of our background layer. So we want to name this. Remember, even on our skins, the colors are usually beneath of the textures. So the colors or skin tones are just behind the textures, and even if you hold on your skin or you touch your skin, you're going to notice that you're feeling textures, meaning that you can't feel the colors, meaning the colors are embedded inside. So we are going to name this inside layer, you're going to name it, some people call it a low frequency, or some people call it the colors, or some people call it the tones. So I've used all names so that you guys don't get confused when I'm mentioning them during the retouching process. Then you're going to name the upper layer high frequency, or some people call it a textures layer. So basically, these are the two layers we're going to be working with. So you can see we have just created those two layers. So we want to separate these two layers so that this layer is only going to contain the tones or the colors, and the high layer is going to contain the texture. So we're going to turn it off by hitting on the eye icon to make it invisible, and you're going to select the low frequency layer, and after it has been selected, you're going to come right here to filter, so that we want to remain with the colors in this very image. So come right here to filter like this, come to blur and come to Gaussian Blur. So when you come to Gaussian Blur, you're going to get this little dialog box, and it is going to contain various information. You can see we have the zoom out tool and the zoom in tool. We have OK, cancel, and preview. So make sure your preview is on so that you can see whatever is going to be taking place right here. So make sure it is on. And we have the radius slider right down here. It is going to be containing the pixels in the image. So you have to zoom out. So make sure you zoom out and look for the area that has more textures than the rest of the skin of the model. So you're going to go with this area particularly. So we want to move this slider. Yeah, I hope you're paying attention. We want to move this slider until we are no longer seeing the textures right here. So you have to do this while you're looking at the image so that you don't overdo it. And the way you are going to do it, you're going to make sure you can still notice the facial structures or the structures in the image. So let's move this like that until we lose out completely on the textures in the image. So you have to keep on moving this until you can no longer see the various textures in this image. So I think a radius of 7 is going to be okay. So let's continue moving because we want to get rid of this patch right here. So let's just move it to around 8. I think this looks okay. And after doing so, remember you have just gotten rid of these textures, and the textures we have hidden, you're going to be able to regain them back. It's like you have stored these textures somewhere in a store. So we're going to come and select OK right here. And after doing so, you're going to come and select the high frequency layer like this and activate it. And the image is going to get back the sharpness. So we are going to now remain with the textures, and which textures we are going to be stealing from the store where we kept them after removing them from the low frequency layer. So we're going to come right here, make sure the texture layer is selected or the high frequency layer, come to image and come to apply image like that. So your image is going to turn like this, and you shouldn't get worried if at all it is looking weird, because you're going to be fixing that in a bit. So under here we have so many options. So the sources are basically the name of the image, and the channel this basically those are like the colors in the image. Then we have to select this layer because it is the one where we are going to be stealing the textures it hid. So we are basically going to drop the textures from this color or low frequency layer. We are going to come right here and we're going to select our target. So this is basically our target. And when you select it, remember we want to steal, and when you're stealing something, you're subtracting it from maybe a person or an individual or a given place. So come and change the blending mode to subtract. And when you select subtract, make sure the opacity is 100, the scale is 2, and offset 128. The reason for doing so is because we want to get a 50% of the channel, that is the RGB. So remember, this channel contains 256 colors, and when you divide 256 by 2 you get 128. So we want to get a 50% of the 256. That's why you have these two values right here. So you have to put in these two values, and when you do so, make sure your preview is on. So when you do so, you're going to notice that your image is going to be on a gray kind of layer, and when you try to zoom in, you're going to start noticing that this is lacking the colors and has textures and maybe just outlines. So basically we have gotten our textures, and we want to approve that by coming and selecting or hitting enter or OK on the keyboard. So you're going to notice that your image has disappeared, but still you shouldn't get worried or maybe bothered by that. So come under a blending mode and change it from normal, because you want to get back the image, and change it to a linear light. And when you do so, you're going to notice that you have gotten back your image the way it was initially. So we want to put these two in a group to prove that there is no difference between the background and our frequency separation layers. So we want to select both layers by hitting Ctrl, holding down Ctrl and clicking on both layers. And now you can drag and drop on this folder like icon, or you can simply hit Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard, Command G for Mac and Ctrl G for PC. So we're going to rename this frequency separation like this. So after you have done so, we're going to open this group. We're going to open it and before we can open that group, we want to ensure that we have separated the image into two successfully. So meaning this group shouldn't be different from the background image. So let's say when I turn it on and off, you can see there is no difference at all, and meaning we have successfully separated the frequencies, or we have successfully divided the image into 2, that is the textures and the colors. So meaning we are ready to start our retouching on this very image. So we're going to click on this drop down icon to open up the group, and when you open it up, make sure you select the textures or high frequency layer. Remember, skin retouching is more of harmonizing or blending together the uneven skin tone transitions. That is what we are going to be doing right now. So after selecting the high frequency layer, come right down here and create a black, or select black and white. So when you select it, make sure you turn it down, come the reds and move this slider down, and you can see the image is now starting to darken. So don't turn it all the way down, just move it briefly until you notice that you can now notice the patches or the uneven transitions in the skin tones. You can see this patch right here. We have some uneven tones right here, so we want to blend those. So come and close this right here and select this layer that is going to contain the tones that we are going to start blending in this image. And for blending, we are going to be learning about the mixer brush tool. So here is where I need your maximum attention. I've been getting so many questions about my brush tool is not working, it cannot blend like everything quite well. So I want to show you guys what to do, the do's and the don'ts for the mixer brush tool, and how to set it to blend the skin tones while you are at the same time retaining your textures or the naturalness in the images. So come right under the brushes and right click and look for mixer brush tool, or you can find it on any of these other options. Try looking for it and you'll get it. So this is a mixer brush tool and not a brush tool, so you have to take that into consideration and think about that. So get your mixer brush tool, and after you select it, you have these options. So this is where you have to make or set up your mixer brush tool so that it can blend for you particular areas really well. So come right down here and make sure you drop down and make sure your brush is clean. So when you make sure it is clean, it is not going to be showing any color right here. Then we have two options right here. We have the first option is going to be showing us load the brush after each and every stroke, which we don't want because we're going to be working with different skin tones or different colors in the image, so we don't want it to load any color. So we have the second option, which is the most useful, that is clean the brush after each stroke. So we have to select this option because we don't want to start picking color from a given area to another when we are trying to do the blending. So come and make sure your wetness is between 8 and 9 because we don't want to apply a big wetness that is going to make the image look plastic. Make sure the load is 75. We don't want to go all the way to 100. The mix at 90 because we want perfect the skin tones, and the flow 100. Then make sure sample all layers is not selected or checked or marked. Make sure you don't have a tick in this box right here. And make sure you're on your low frequency layer. Make sure you're not on your high frequency layer. Make sure you're on the layer that is going to contain the tones you're going to start blending in this very image. And after you have done so, you're good to go to start blending. Then here is where I need your close and maximum attention. So we're going to zoom in this image until maybe we are really precise. I think that looks fine. So let's zoom out a little bit. So I think that looks fine. So we are going to start blending the unevenness in the skin tone. So when we are doing the blending, make sure you blend the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone, because we don't want to pick color and drag it from maybe the midtones to the highlights or vice versa. So we're going to start doing that. And to increase or decrease on the size of your mixer brush tool, use the left bracket, which is going to decrease, and the right bracket, which is going to increase on the size of your mixer brush tool. So let's start blending. So you can see I'm starting with this kind of shadows right here, and I'm just blending. And when you're doing the blending, make sure you don't overblend a particular area for a long time, because that's basically going to be doubling the wetness effect right here. So if at all I overblend here like twice, it is going to convert this from 8 to 16, which you don't want in this very image. So let's adjust. You can see I'm blending this transition right here. Then I'm coming to this highlight. I'm just blending that highlight and the surrounding areas. So let's see what I've just done so far. Turn this off like that, and you can see that's the before after. You can see what we have just done. We have just blended in these uneven skin tones. So basically the black and white layer guides us when we are trying to do the blending in this very image like this. So we have just gotten rid of that patch, and don't mind if at all you're skipping or accidentally leaving out some areas, because I'm going to be sharing another technique that is going to refine your image even more. So let's come right here and we try to fix this line right there. So we have this kind of mid-tone. I'm just blending it right there, and I'm going to come this other side so that I can be uniform with my retouching or mixing of the mixer brush tool. So I'm going to come to this shadow. I'm just going to blend it like that. So come. So I'm just going to zoom in because I want to blend this part on the lower lip, or on the chin of the model, sorry. So just come and do that. So make sure you're on your low frequency layers to see the effect of the mixer brush tool, or how it is going to affect your image when you're trying to do the blending of the skin tone. So just do that, and you shouldn't mind if at all you are just skipping or leaving out some areas, because I'm about to share with you guys in a bit the other step you can use to fine-tune the image even more. So come right down here on the nose, you have this shadow, so just come and blend that shadow alone. I hope you can see how I'm taking my brush, yeah, from up to down like that. You can see what I'm just doing. You can see I'm not blending the highlight yet or as yet. So I'm just going to come to the highlight and I'm just going to blend it alone like that. So like I said, when you're retouching, you have to keep on checking on whether you are going overboard or you're doing the right thing. So just come and turn this off and check and see the before and the after, if at all you're really doing a nice job with your skin retouching. So you can as well work without the black and white layer to see where you may have skipped or missed out when you're trying to do the blending. So come and activate this yet again and just continue with the blending on those particular areas. So come right down here. I know some retouchers out there do retouching on images and they tend to maybe forget. I shouldn't say they leave out, they forget. It is not intentional. So come and also blend the lower arms, because, or the lower body, because this is also part of the image that you're going to be retouching. So make sure you don't leave out these areas. You can see how I'm trying to blend these areas, and the image is basically going to look nice at the end of just using the mixer brush tool, even before we can transition. And the other thing you have to take into consideration or bear in mind is the mixer brush tool works best with these lower parts of the body, because the second method is going to be really a high density method, and is going to apply a high density onto the image. So you wouldn't want to apply it on the lower body. That's why I'm basically trying to do or take a lot of time while blending the skin tones in these very areas, because I'm not going to be fine-tuning at these areas using the very second step or the second method. So That's why I'm just taking my time. So I'm just going to come right here. I'm just going to continue harmonizing the skin tones right here on the chest of the model like this. I hope you guys are seeing what the mixer brush tool is really capable of in skin retouching. I know some people use various methods for dodging and burning, but you can as well adopt the mixer brush tool because it is going to give you a very big step forward before you can start retouching your images in Photoshop. So make sure you use it first, and you can blend or paint using the brush later on, using your dodging and burning or micro dodging and burning for retouching your images. So I think we are done using a mixer brush tool. So let's see the progress so far. Turn this off and see what you have done so far. So that's the before, after, before, after. So you can just come right to the chest right here and just do a little bit more of the blending to get rid of these tiny dark spots right there. So I think this looks okay and natural. You can see the before and after. So what I would like to do, I would like to do the fine tuning onto this image. And before I can do that, I'm going to select the black and white layer, and I'm going to hit delete or press delete on the keyboard to delete it, or you can just drag and drop it right there to delete it. So this is what I'm going to share with you guys. The other method you can use to do more refining or fine-tuning onto this image, and that method is going to be the one for using the lasso tool to fine-tune the image. So we're going to select the lasso tool. So this is the lasso tool, and when you do select it, and if at all maybe you're planning to do retouching in future and you can no longer see a tool you're going to be using, you can simply click the caps lock key, because when the caps lock key is on, your tool turns into a cross sign. So make sure you click the caps key and your tool is going to turn back to its default. So after selecting the lasso tool, make sure your feathering is around 20 pixels and add alias is selected. Then we are going to zoom into, and when you zoom into, make sure you come back and select the low frequency layer because we want to fine tune the skin tones in this very layer. So come and make a selection. So you shouldn't select the hair or the eyebrows or the boundaries, maybe even clothing of the model. Make sure you only select the skin of the model like that. And after doing your selection, you'll notice that you're going to get those dotted lines around your selection. Then come right back to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So this is going to show us the previous settings we had for our Gaussian blur. And what we are going to do, we are going to now start moving it towards the right hand side until we feel like we have gotten the best texture out of our image. So let's start moving. So you have to move it slowly and gradually while looking at the image until you get the best out of your image, or the best textures out of your image. So let's move. I think let's continue. I think at 24 we are good to go, and this texture looks really natural and more realistic on this image. So come and hit OK. So we want to apply this effect onto the rest of the image, and in order to do that, you are simply going to make the same selections, but remember when you're doing so, select the way light is falling on a particular area. So you can see that shape right there. So right click and click on Gaussian blur, or select Gaussian blur, and if at all you feel the effect is too much, simply press Shift Ctrl F or Shift Command F, and it is going to let you reduce on the effect of the Gaussian blur on a particular area of the image. So let's come and just, you can see a shapes I'm drawing, guys. It's not like a flat shape, and I'm not applying the effect randomly onto the overall image. I'm just drawing gradual shapes while building up the image like that. So right click, click on Gaussian Blur, then come this side. Like, it depends on how you want to draw your shapes basically, or how you want to apply the effect. I prefer doing it side by side. Work on this side and this side like that. So come right to the chin, below the chin, sorry, or on the chin area, and you're going to apply it right there like that. So make sure you don't leave out any area in the image, and when doing it on the ellipse, make sure you don't select close to the ellipse, because it's going to sample color from the closest area on the lip area, and it is going to look awkward. So here is why I want you guys to give me your maximum attention. And here you can see on the nose area we have these shadows. So you can see a shape I'm going to draw. I'm just drawing it within the shadow area of the nose. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to apply it. Then I'm also going to come right this side, draw that nice shape, and apply it right there. So I know some people that use frequency separation come and just select this highlight, or select the whole nose as a whole and apply the effect. But when you do so, you're going to notice that you have lost out on the beautiful nose highlight, and we want to regain that back, and we don't want it to look really rough. So you're just going to come and reduce on the effect by hitting Shift Command F on the keyboard, and you're going to knock it down until we get back our beautiful highlight. If at all you wanted to add it or apply your Gaussian blur on that area. So I think that looks fine. And if at all you would like to apply it right here, you should be careful. So I'm just going to draw a shape right there. Then I'm going to come right to filter, and I'm going to come to blur, because I want to get a different radius. So Gaussian blur, and I'm just going to get a different radius for that particular area. So I'm just going to go with 13 for that area. So I would like to apply it even right on this other side. So let's go with 13 for that area too. So let's see what we have done for the skin retouching. So this was the image before, after. You can see what we have just done with skin retouching on this very image. So what I would love to do, I would love to teach you guys skin sculpting. You can see we have lost out on various details. For example, the contouring, which was just right here on the cheek area of the model, and the beautiful highlights right here on the cheek. So we want to regain that back by just contouring this image. And in order to do that, we're going to be learning about dodging and burning. So basically, what is dodging and burning? Dodging and burning is basically a skin retouching technique that helps us to highlight or enhance the highlights and the shadows in the image. I know most people know dodging and burning as a retouching technique, like for micro dodging and burning to even out the skin tones, which is okay. But for this case, the dodging and burning I'm talking about is more of enhancing the highlights and the shadows to contour the image. It's like we're going to be makeup artists in this very tutorial. So what we are going to do, we are going to do dodging and burning using curves in Photoshop. So we're going to create a curves adjustment layer. So come right down here and select curves. Then you're going to make a midpoint, and you're going to brighten. So make sure you move it up until the image is really looking overexposed. So come and close that. So make sure this mask is selected, and click Ctrl or Command I to hide that effect. So remember, when you're brightening will be dodging, and when you're darkening will be burning. So you should take that into consideration. So you're going to name this dodge. So you're going to do the same, curves, and you're going to make a midpoint and now darken until the image is really looking underexposed like that. So you're going to make sure this white mask is selected and hide the effect by hitting Ctrl or Command I. So remember, black hides and white reveals. So after we have done so, we're going to select both layers and put them in a group by hitting Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard. Then we are going to name this group Dodge and Burn like that. So after doing so, we're going to open this group, and here the technique I'm going to be using for this very image is dodging and burning, and that technique we are going to be using is by simply drawing lines on this very image. So I know there are various techniques still about dodging and burning. For maybe you just get your brush tool and just after creating this, get your brush tool and reduce on the opacity and just paint over the highlights and the shadows or the areas you want to enhance. But this technique is maybe the simplest one I'm just about to show you guys, because as a beginner you're going to be understanding it even more. So after you have put this in a group and you have opened the group, come and first select the dodge layer, then come and now select your, yes, you have these colors right here, these two boxes. I hope you guys can see them. So what we are going to be doing basically, we are going to make sure white is on top, and if at all you don't have these black and white, click on these two boxes to get back black and white, and to get white on top just click on this arrow, or you just press X on the keyboard to get white on top. Remember, we want to get a white brush to paint on this black mask to reveal what we hid on the dodge layer. So come and select your brush tool. So right click and get your brush tool. Make sure your opacity and the flow at 100. Smoothing is at 0% if at all you have this option in your Photoshop. And now you're just going to zoom in slightly like that. And you're just going to draw lines on every area that has a highlight in this image. So just come and draw a line. We have a highlight there. One there. We had a highlight right there. Then we had a highlight. Then we had a highlight right there. Then we had one right here. So I'm basically drawing lines on the areas that had highlights in this image. So I think I'm done drawing those lines. So after I've done so, I'm going to make sure this black mask is still selected. Remember, we are dodging, so I'm going to come right here to window, and I'm going to come right to properties. So under properties we have density and feather. So make sure your density is at 100%. So we want to blend these lines into the image so that they can blend into the skin tones of the image. So come and just start moving, and as we move this, you're going to start noticing that these lines are starting to disappear into the skin of the model. So just move them until you feel like it is the right step for you maybe to stop. So I'm going to move it until right there. I feel like that is enough for me. So that's the before after. You can see what it has contributed to this image. So you shouldn't mind if at all this is too much, because we're going to be fixing that in a bit. So we're going to come right the sorry, I did not rename this, so I'm going to name that burn. So we are going to come back and select this black mask, and this time around we're going to just draw lines on the shadow area. So come and draw just lines. They should really be simple lines. So we have shadows, so we had those beautiful shadows right there. So we are going to come right on the nose area, and we're just going to draw lines like that. Just going to increase this. So I think that is fine. So you can as well increase this. So I think that is okay. So what we want to do, we are going to select the burn mask, come back to window and come down to properties and density 100, then we just move the feathering like this until they start blending into the skin of the model like that. I hope you guys are seeing the difference. So that's the before and after for our bun. You can see what it has just done onto the image, and it is really looking beautiful and more professional. But what you're going to notice, that it is also affecting the colors in the image. And in order to get rid of that, come and change the blending mode from normal and change it to luminosity for the bun, and come the dodge and do the same and change it to luminosity so that it doesn't affect the colors in the image. So if at all you feel you would love to delete the effect from a particular area in the image, come and select the layer and change the brush to black and just paint to delete the effect from a particular area in the image. So basically that is how we do the dodging and burning in Photoshop after doing the skin retouching. So this is the before and the after, before, after. And if at all you feel it is too much, just come and reduce on the opacity of the dodging and burning. So what we would love to do, we would love to learn about color grading. So basically, color grading is maybe a preferential kind of thing, and different retouchers prefer to go for specific colors in their images. That is what I don't know what I'm going to go in for particularly for this image, but I would love to go in for that kind of melanin look for this very image. It is going to be a medium melanin kind of look, so medium skin tone kind of look. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a stamp visible layer because I don't want to color grade on these groups. It is going to be looking awkward. So I'm going to create a stamp visible layer for all we have done by hitting Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard to create a stamp visible layer. And now I'm going to start color grading this image. I'm going to come right here to selective color, and I'm going to come under the blacks. I'm going to start just increase on the blacks in the image, and I'm going to come and turn down the yellows because I want the background to have that kind of bluish kind of feel that is going to be complementing the tones in the image. So I'm just going to move it even more to around 9 like that. Then I'm going to close this. Actually, let me open it by double clicking right there. I'm going to come right to the reds of the image, and I'm going to turn down the yellows a little bit to around -2. And I'm going to come to the yellows, and I'm going to also knock down the yellows in this image to around 5. So after I have done so, I'm going to create another stamp visible layer by hitting Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, Shift Alternate Command E for Mac. Yeah, Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard to create another stamp visible layer. And for this case, we are going to do the eye whitening and more color grading in the camera raw filter like I told you at the beginning of this very tutorial. And in order to do so, I'm going to duplicate the this layer by hitting Ctrl or Command J on the keyboard. I'm going to come to filter, and I'm going to come to the camera raw filter like that. So you can see you can as well stop right here if at all you feel you're okay with the image, but I'm just basically showing you guys the different techniques you can use to color grade your images in Photoshop. So we are going to come right here under the HSL panel to do the first bit of color grading onto this image. I'm going to come to the hues, and I'm just going to we are just going to play around with these colors to see what basically is going to work for us in this image. So I'm just going to knock down the oranges a little bit, and I'm going to also come and knock the reds down to around -12. Then I'm going to come to the saturation and I'm going to reduce the saturation of the reds in this image slightly. I'm going to be coming back to these options because I want you guys to understand whatever we are doing onto this image. Then I'm going to come to the luminous and I'm going to knock down on the oranges in this image like that. I hope you guys can see that when you knock down the luminous, basically the luminous is more of the lightness or darkness of a given color. So that's why I just had to knock down the luminous in the oranges, and I prefer to let me also knock down the luminous in the yellows. So I'm going to come back to the hues and I'm going to, because I felt like I had taken my hues really far, then I'm going to come back to the saturation and I'm going to knock down the saturation in my yellows to kind of give this image a really beautiful vibe. I'm going to also knock down the saturation in my oranges. So depending on the look you're trying to go in for, so I think that is okay for the HSL panel. So I'm going to come right down here to the calibration option and I'm going to play around with this even more. So you can see when you turn the reds down, the red primary, what you really get and the results you get. So I'm just going to go with around 7 and I'm going to reduce on the saturation of the red primary to around, I'm going to go with around -20, and I'm going to come the green primary and I see what it has in store for me. I think I should add in a little bit of greens into the image, and I'm also going to reduce on the saturation to -3. I think the image looks amazing and awesome because it is kind of blending with the crown right there. So let's see what they, I think I'm just going to leave this at 0. So I'm going to add a little bit of saturation to the oranges like that. So after I feel like this is okay for me, I'm going to come right up and we're going to be learning about how to whiten eyes and teeth in Photoshop. And I'm just going to click, make sure I have my zoom tool selected and zoom into the eyes of the model. So here we're going to be doing the eye whitening on this model's eyes. So get your adjustment brush tool. Remember, for eye whitening, we're either removing color from the eye or removing those warm tones from the eyes of the model. So we're going to now get the adjustment brush tool. So you can press K on the keyboard. That's the shortcut for the adjustment brush tool. So this tool is going to enable us paint selectively on particular parts of the image, and that is the eyes and maybe teeth, if at all we are doing the teeth whitening. So we are going to come right down here and we are going to, first of all, removing the yellow from the eyes, we have to move the temperature towards the opposite of yellow. So we are going to go with -25. Then we want to add some kind of magentas to the eyes. So we are going to go with 60. Then we want the eyes to really pop in this image. That's why we are going to move the highlights to around, let's go with around 4. And the whites to around 2. Then remember we are removing color from this white area of the eye. We're going to come right to the saturation and you're going to knock it down slightly to around -60 like that. So you just want to whiten the eyes, and you know the thing about this tool is when you paint over the skin like this, it is going to remove color because the saturation is down, which you don't want to do. So you only want to paint over the white area of the eye. So just come and start doing the painting on the white area like that to do the whitening. So make sure you resist from painting on this corner because everyone really has that kind of brownish pinkish kind of corner in the eyes. This corner, I shouldn't paint it, because the eyes are going to really look unnatural or unrealistic at the end of the day. So I think the eyes are okay for me. I'm going to zoom down, and now I think I can do some little bit of work on the teeth. So let's just get that brief addition like that. So I think we are done with the eye and teeth whitening on this very image. So what I would love to do, I'm going to open this image back into Photoshop by hitting OK, so that you guys can see the before and after for the camera roll. So that was the image before camera roll, and this is the after. Before, after, you can see what we have just done. So I would love to add some little bit of contrast in this image, and I'm going to come right down here and I'm going to come to the brightness and contrast. I could have done this in camera raw, but I prefer to do it in Photoshop because I have this option of use legacy, and this really adds some little bit of those nice warm tones in the contrast. So I'm just going to move it to around 2, and I think the image is now looking more beautiful. So as I said before, after, it is not too much and it is really subtle. So I would love to create a stamp visible layer once more by hitting Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard, and I want to clean up this background. So I'm going to get this spot healing brush tool, and I'm going to do the cleaning up on the background of this very image. So I'm just going to just remove these things, all those tiny distractions in the background, by just dabbing over them and eliminating them anyway. So I think this is okay. So what I would want to do, I'm going to put all color grading in a group by pressing down the Shift key and making sure the above layer is selected and scrolling all the way down while still holding down Shift and clicking on the bottom layer and hitting Ctrl or Command G. So I'm going to name this layer color grade like that, so that you guys can see the before and after for our color grading of this very image. So this was the image before color grading, and this is the after color grading. Before, after, before, after. I hope you guys can really testify and show me that you guys love this image in the comment section, if at all you guys are watching anyway. So I would love to show you guys our progress so far. So this was our image before, and the image without the blemishes. Then we did frequency separation, so that the image before and after, you can see what we did. But we used the mixer brush tool and the lasso tool method. Then we did the dodging and burning to add shape or dimension to the image, and we later on did the color grading of this very image. So that's the image before, after, before, after. So right now what we would love to do, we would love to export this image after we feel like what we have done with the retouching is enough. So for the retouching and color grading, this was the image initially before, after, before, after, before and after. So we're going to come right here in order to save our image after it has been retouched. Come to File and click Export, and come to Export As. So when you click on Export As, you're going to be getting this window opening up or loading, and we have various settings right here. So this is the image, and after we have this right hand side, which is containing the format. So under format you have JPEG, PNG, and whichever format you would love to save your image in, and we have the quality, then the dimension. So this is going to differ on maybe the use of your image, and basically we are going to do this maybe to export it as an Instagram image or a social media image. So we're going to come right down here. So this is where the magic happens. I know most of you guys maybe retouch your images, and when you post them they change color. So here is where the magic is basically going to happen. So come and select embed color profile. So when you embed the color profile, all the colors you have put while color grading or editing your image are going to be embedded into the image. So even if you put them or post the image on a given website, your image is going to still retain those colors that you put in them because you had to embed them. So come and click export, and it's going to give you maybe a given destination where you want to store or keep your image after it has been retouched. And you can as well rename it. So we can name this, we can name it masterclass. I think that is okay. And after you feel it is done and enough, click save, and it is going to take a few seconds, and your image is going to be saved in that particular folder that you selected. So this has been a tutorial about skin retouching, and has been my very last episode for you guys this year about skin retouching. And I hope you guys have not missed anything or misunderstood me, because I've tried as much as possible to be short, precise, and clear so that you can follow along in the slow steps I've been taking you guys through. I hope you find this really useful, and don't forget to subscribe this channel if you're watching for the very first time. I'm Ronnix from Ronnix Photography, and you can follow me on Instagram at Ronnix Photography, or my personal Instagram at Ronnix Mutegeki. And yeah, I hope you guys really, and wish you guys the best in your retouching processes, and I'll see you in other tutorials that is basically going to be more of behind the scenes on my channel. And don't forget to keep practicing and keep creating.